It's a beautiful day for some football.
Hello and welcome to Sports Tavern Talk. I'm your host, Elijah Loyola. Sorry for the late video, but we're going to get right back into it with the second half of the first round selections. Just like the first half in the last video, the second half selections were crazy selections. And I have to say, some of these picks were definitely reaches, and I question whether or not these players were really first round selections. In any case then, let's take a look at the first 8 selections of the second half of round 1. Quite a few selections and reaches here in the second half of round 1, but a lot of great picks as well. The Blake Miller selection to the Lions, the Monroe Freeling selection to the Panthers, and the Makai Lemon pick to the Eagles were great selections at that spot, especially with the Eagles trading up to get him. The two other selections of Caleb Banks and Maxon Anchor are a bit iffy in my spot, considering that both the Vikings deals could have gone in different routes for more high-profile players. But we'll get to it later on. Akeem Mesidor to the Chargers is the same thing. Instead of the Chargers drafting a tackle in the first round to protect Justin Herbert, they decided to go for the second glaring position at edge and bring some more youth to that spot. And for the last two selections of Malachi Lawrence and Kevin Concepcion, Lawrence was definitely a reach at that spot for them to get him over Cassius Howell, Zion Young, and TJ Parker. But Kevin Concepcion, KC Lane to the Browns at 24 is amazing as he gives them a big boost for their offense. After the Cowboys traded up in the first half of round 1 to select Caleb Downs, it made a lot of sense for them to trade back in the second half to earn some draft capital back. And it also did work in the Eagles' favor because the Steelers were looking to select Makai Lemon with their selection, but the Eagles took the chance to select him before they could. Meanwhile, after then, KC going to the Browns gives them that huge boost like I mentioned earlier, as it helps that wide receiver room go even better, giving the Cleveland Browns 2 A+ picks in Fano and Concepcion in round 1. But anyways then, let's talk about these prospects and why these picks make sense, starting off with the Clemson tackle Blake Miller. The Lions going for offensive tackle Blake Miller at the 17th overall pick makes a lot of sense, especially the fact that it came to a messy disagreement with Taylor Decker and that Dan Skipper suddenly retired during the offseason. After that, the tackle position became a glaring need for the Lions as they need to find another person to protect Jared Goff and open up the running lanes. Miller fills in that spot as he's a big, tough, and gritty player that will fit within Dan Campbell's culture. And so for me, I will give this a B+ selection. The Lions are then looking forward on their offense to get back to their winning ways and make it back to the division title and another playoff appearance. For the Vikings to select defensive tackle Caleb Banks at 18th overall, I'm not a big fan of the selection, which will lead me to give this a C- grade. Sure, the Vikings fill in a much needed defensive tackle spot with losing 2 of them in free agency that also included Javon Hargrave. Banks is recovering from a foot injury. Even though he will start week 1, I believe Minnesota could have gone a different direction improving their defense, most likely in the secondary with safety Dylan Diemon, who would have been a great fit that was still on the board at the time then. And then having a second round pick at pick 49, they easily could have found a defensive tackle at that spot as well. But nonetheless, Caleb Banks will be a first round pick and an immediate start that can really help this Vikings defensive front. I have to give it to the Carolina Panthers for sticking put at 19 and then selecting Monroe Freeling at 19th overall. This pick earns themselves a B+ selection because even though I initially had them selecting an edge in Keldrick Folk, this pick gives them a nice, youthful, big, and powerful tackle who is still coming onto his own with high developmental traits. The other recent news is that Ikem Ekwonu is also recovering from an injury and is entering a contract year. So for them to select the tackle at that spot puts Ekwonu at a tough spot as he might need to perform once he comes back from injury with high value if he wants to stay on the roster. For the Eagles to trade up with the Cowboys at number 20 to select Makai Lemon, I give this draft selection an A. It makes a lot of sense for the Eagles too, as they get a big-bodied wide receiver who can go down the field, make some plays, and make some big catches as well. The AJ Brown saga is most likely coming to an end, especially the fact the Eagles have come to terms that he will most likely not return next season. The most likely trade partner for AJ Brown is the New England Patriots, and the trade talks will happen probably end of May post June 1st. So we will see what the trade package will be from then. But otherwise, the Eagles will get a nice big playmaker for their offense. I'm not a big fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers going for Max and Hanker at the number 21st selection. For me, this is a D+ draft grade. Surely the Steelers could have used a tackle in a different round because all the skill players were definitely here in round 1, going for either wide receivers Denzel Boston or Casey Concepcion at that spot. But for them to go tackle, it makes sense in some case that one of their own players have suffered a gruesome injury and are looking forward to filling the necessary spot needed. And quite frankly, there were other better tackles than Max at anchor, like Caleb Lomu, who was still available as well. So for me, I'm not sure what the Steelers were going for in this case, but nonetheless, this is a D+ in my opinion here for them. The Chargers going for edge Akeem Mesidor with the 22nd overall pick earns this a B. The selection of this pick is a good one as well, as Akeem Mesidor, though despite being 25 years old, is a proven pass rusher that would surely make an impact for this Chargers defense. I certainly think the pick could have been better if they decided to go for a tackle, but considering the fact that they signed out a lot of offensive linemen earlier last month during the free agency period, they're going to trust their guys in that fact and help bring some more defensive pressure on the edge position. And I'm not going to hate on this pick either. Khalil Mack is getting up on his age, and the Chargers certainly need to find another proven player who can take over that mantle at that spot. For the Cowboys to trade back to the number 23 spot in round 1 and then selecting Malachi Lawrence with that pick, this earns it a C+ draft grade. It does make sense that with the Cowboys having no second round picks needing help at the edge spot, decide to go for one of the premier pass rushers of the draft. However, even though Malachi Lawrence definitely upgraded his stock over the last 2 months from being a day 3 projection to becoming a first round pick, there were certainly other edge rushers in this draft that were rated highly over him, such as Zion Young out of Missouri, TJ Parker for Clemson, and Cassius Howell at Texas A&M. The Cowboys still get an edge rusher to help them out with the departure of Micah Parsons, and are looking forward to upgrading this defense even further for next season. But we'll see how this pick will play out. For the Browns to stay put at 24 instead of either trading up or down in the draft, they land wide receiver Kevin Concepcion at that spot, and for me, this is an A+ draft selection. Todd Monken instantly knew that this was one of the best premier wide receivers, and despite his short stature, he is a big-time playmaker and explosive receiver after the catch, and it can continue to develop into one of the best young receivers in the college football league, trends that can transition to the NFL level. The Cleveland Browns wide receiver room was definitely a mess last year, and they certainly took a look at that, saying that we need to upgrade it. And for them to land this one first is a big move that will really help them out. Not to mention, especially what they did afterwards. On a side note, the Cleveland Browns' next selection came all the way down to number 39 of round 2. And yet the 15 picks in between, every single team made a mistake on passing up a wide receiver Denzel Boston. So for me, Cleveland grabbing the best tackle in Fano and 2 of the big time wide receivers in KC and Boston in with their first 3 selections tells me that the Cleveland Browns are definitely pulling something great together on offense, and head coach Todd Monken is definitely looking forward for it. In any case then, moving on, let's go on and see the final 8 selections of round 1 in the NFL draft, and let's see how they pan out. And here are the final 8 picks of round 1 of the 2026 draft. My mind cannot even begin to process how Dylan Thielman fell down to number 25 in the lap of the Chicago Bears, which is simply amazing for their defense. But the selections for Houston and Miami of Kalen Rutledge and Chris Johnson baffle me, especially the fact that these 2 players were definitely not first round picks and that there were definitely others that were highly rated. The Caleb Lomu and Peter Wood selections for the Patriots and Chiefs make a lot of sense as the Patriots get more offensive line help and the heir apparent tackle for the Chiefs to Chris Jones. The Jets and the Titans decided to trade back into the first round, give themselves another wide receiver for their offense and a prototypical edge that Robert Saleh is going to love to have for his defense in Keldrick Folk. And then finally for the Seahawks, they decided to go for the running back, which is the most glaring need for them, and they decided to select Jadarian Price, which is a very smart move in my opinion. Looking back after the results of round 1, both the Buffalo Bills and the San Francisco 49ers decided to trade out of the first round and earn some more draft capital, which is really smart for them considering the fact that they did not have as much draft capital as they certainly needed for all their concerning needs. But nonetheless, we have now entered the end of the first round and are now looking back at the final 8 selections and their draft grades. So let's take a look at why these picks make a lot of sense for these last 8 teams. I love the Dylan Thielman pick to the Chicago Bears at the 25th overall selection. For me, this is an A- draft grade. The Bears understood that both of their safeties left in free agency in Jaquan Brisker and Kevin Byard, so they have to immediately fix that spot right away. They started off by getting safety Kobe Bryant from the Seattle Seahawks to a 3-year contract, and now with the selection of Thielman brings it even to a better position. Both of these guys would definitely bring some height, youth, and physicality for this defense as they look to retool the defense after so many of their guys left and hoping to get back on the track and compete for the division title once again. Starting off with Houston, we have finally reached into the real questionable deep territory. The Houston Texans, knowing that they need a guard, decided to go with Caitlin Rutledge out of Georgia Tech. For me, this is a C- draft grade. Though while the offensive guard has now been filled with thanks to this selection, there were 2 other guards that were certainly ranked much higher above this guy, in Emmanuel Prognon out of Oregon and Chase Basanis out of Texas A&M. For me, both of those 2 guys could have been first round picks, and the draft grade in my opinion could have been better, but I don't understand why Houston decided to reach for a 3rd round projection prospect and pull them up to the first round. The same thing can be said for the Miami Dolphins in selecting cornerback Chris Johnson out of San Diego State. So for me, this is also a C-. Sure, Chris Johnson is a very good corner who is lengthy and can provide a lot of coverage for the Dolphins defense as he becomes a glaring need as they start off with a brand new head coach, quarterback, and general manager. But in my eyes, there were definitely highly rated quarterbacks in Adrian Terrell, Colton Hood, Jermon McCoy. I don't understand why they decided to go for a 2nd round projection. He makes a case for sure, and I don't know what they're thinking, but surely there were definitely more highly rated corners that Miami could have selected at the 27th overall spot. The New England Patriots' decision to trade up in the first round from 31 to 28 with the Bills and selecting Caleb Lomu earns themselves an A draft grade. The Patriots understood that during the season and in the Super Bowl especially, the offensive line is still in shambles and they need to find help at that spot. And certainly Caleb Lomu for the left tackle position would really help. Will Campbell was the right selection for them last year as he did good during his rookie year, but he definitely struggled during the Super Bowl when it mattered most. With Lomu at the other side for them, the Patriots will now have 2 young studs at the tackle spot that they can surely develop into big, strong, and tough linemen that will certainly do anything to help protect their quarterback, and Caleb Lomu will provide the spot to help protect Drake May's blindside. I cannot even begin to fathom how the Kansas City Chiefs also landed Peter Woods in the first round at the 29th overall spot. For me, this is a B+ draft grade. It seems like Woods will become the heir apparent to Chris Jones, who may retire sooner or later after this season or later on. I could have think the Chiefs should have gone wide receiver in this case, especially with Denzel Boston still available, but it looks like the Chiefs will trust their guys between Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. Nonetheless, the Chiefs are about to get a freakish athlete at the defensive tackle spot who would certainly help bring this defense back to where it once was. The New York Jets submitted another trade and decided to go for their 3rd first-round selection, and with this pick at the 30th overall, they decided to go with Omar Cooper Jr. And for me, this does deserve an A draft grade. Knowing that the wide receiver room needs some help, they decided to go with Cooper Jr. at that spot, and he is a big and clutch receiver that the Jets would surely love to have alongside Garrett Wilson. Now with that, think about it. The Jets offense will now have Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Amari Cooper Jr., Garrett Wilson, and tight end Keon Sadiq. Surely for Geno Smith and that offense, there is certainly a plethora of young weapons that can definitely work together as a big group. The Tennessee Titans also traded back into the first round for the 31st overall selection. And with their pick of Keldrick Folk out of Auburn, I'm going to give this an A draft grade for the Titans. While Folk didn't have the big stats like other passers in this draft class, his prototypical size as a 6'6 player with long arms and unbelievable strength, Robert Saleh just landed a prototypical player that could surely be used and developed into a top tier rusher for that defense. He did the same thing for Nick Bosa back when he was on the 49ers, and I believe Saleh can do the exact same thing for Folk on the Titans. The Seattle Seahawks were definitely one of the teams that was going to trade back in the first round for more draft capital, but instead they decided to stick with their pick at number 32 and select running back Jadarian Price. This was one of the easiest selections in my mind that Seattle could ever make. With the departure of Kenneth Walker off from the team who left for the Chiefs, they need to fill the running back spot immediately, considering the fact that Zach Charbonnet is still recovering from an ACL tear back from last year's divisional round. Price was the second man behind Jeremiah Love on Notre Dame's offense, and he still put up a lot of production despite this limited role. So it'll be very interesting to see what Price can do as the number one back for Seattle's offense, but certainly he will be a great fit among the star players that they have in Seattle. And there you have it, all 32 draft picks that made it into the first round. And once again, congratulations to all those 32 players who made it to the pro level. Going forward during the next 2 weeks, I will be posting up my full draft grades of every team selection in this 2026 draft. And I'll mention any of the big names that the team signed as an undrafted free agent going forward as well. At any point then, we have now reached the breaking point of the training camps and the schedule release before the NFL preseason starts. So once again, thank you all so much for watching. Please make sure to leave a like and comment on the video with your thoughts, and let me know if your team nailed your draft and if you like the picks that they made. And as always, I will see you next time.